Hello and welcome. I want to talk in this video about the disconnection that males experience on a social and emotional level, how it manifests, and the consequences that result from a man's choice to disengage from society. See, we as men, we're free to choose, but we're not free from the consequences of those choices. Now, I recall a line from Hemingway's The Old Man and the Sea. The line read, "A man can be destroyed, but not defeated." Now, I read that when I was just a boy, and it resonated with me my whole life. Because I knew as a child that the old man, he wasn't fighting the sea. He was fighting himself. And we've seen it. Man will destroy himself from the inside out, or that man can cause a hell of a lot of carnage before ever accepting that fact. Because process is adaptation. Growth is resilience. And resilience is the capacity to adapt, to bend, and not to break. But this expectation we have of men, this reliance we place on the resilience of males, it's something we don't want to hear about, or even give voice to. So we just pile on more pressure. We just pile on more demands and expectations onto males. And no thought is given to the workhorse breaking, or the horse taking the bit out of its own mouth and just walking away. We've done such a great job of dehumanizing men that we've absolved others of having to live with the consequences of their actions towards males. We just justify by placing the blame on men instead, collectively or individually. It doesn't matter, because we've all been raised to ignore male pain. And men never give voice to their pain due to fear of stigma. And yes, compassion is understanding, but what do we really understand about men? Because choose any stereotype you like directed at males, we ignore, we deflect, we shame and silence men, we dehumanize. Men are conditioned to minimize their suffering and their experiences. And dehumanization can only take place when the group being dehumanized accepts that they are less than the other group and deserving of this abuse, and that their rights and their well-being are unimportant. It's the illusion of male privilege driven by a paralyzing self-loathing and a crippling sense of inadequacy. Because if a man does speak up about his mental or his emotional well-being, it's viewed as weakness. He's seen as a liability and it's construed as a threat. Because people do this subconsciously. Because we can't, as a tribe or as a society, rely on or invest in a male who is not fully functional. So what happens? The avenues close off. The man then turns inward. He sees himself as weak or deficient. So he becomes depressed. Then he experiences shame for feeling depressed. And in turn, he doesn't believe he's worthy of help, so he self-medicates. And it's a marketer's wet dream. And PUA thrives on this, making a male feel deficient, and then filling the sense of inadequacy with a scam product. And this male sense of inadequacy, everything feeds off it. All the shame and stigma we direct at men, at the heart of it, is our fear of men losing their productivity. And scar tissue. Scar tissue stays with you. It never fades. And if a man develops the tools to cope, then he has a shot at not allowing that pain and those negative experiences to define him. But for other men, they become casualties. They get caught in a cycle of self-abuse. Because so many of the decisions we make at an early age can cause havoc on a man's life in later years. The amount of stress this causes to a man mentally and physically, along with the stigma and the code of silence regarding male health, and the lack of mental health and general healthcare funding for male issues, and the unwillingness of men to reach out for help, due to the possibility of it hurting his career or fracturing relationships. Have you ever seen a man break down in tears? And you watch people scatter. You watch their reactions. It's one of revulsion. Yeah, because I don't know any other way of describing it. The isolation that men experience, socially and emotionally, it has serious health repercussions. It increases mortality rates significantly, and it's one of the major killers for men. Yet, when has society ever raised the issue? I can't recall a single instance. Because we live in a society in which your worth is judged by the number of friends you appear to have. However superficial those so-called friendships are, especially online. So, the stigma of not being a part of some expansive social network, it carries a stigma. Yeah, me personally, I can count the number of true friends I have on one hand, because they're proven their mettle to me. Those interactions are meaningful to me. But superficial interactions, in many ways, they only reinforce a man's sense of isolation. And every man listening to this knows exactly what I mean. But men, they need to allow themselves to admit that they experience these feelings of isolation, that they get lonely, that they're human, and that these are basic human needs, that these are survival mechanisms within our physiological and mental makeup that we have no control over. And to deny them is to accept the consequences of that choice in terms of adverse health risks, in terms of a shortened lifespan, and so on. And every decision has a consequence, and men need to be informed before making that decision. And a man who isolates himself, that man, he starts running on survival instinct. And everything and everyone can be viewed as a potential threat. And it becomes all about you versus them. And it's a very adversarial, negative mindset. And even if someone hurt us in the past, a man in the space, often he'll now hurt others because it just doesn't matter to him. He just wants others to hurt as he does. And any target will do. He lashes out and justifies that this person brought it on themselves. But living in that bitter, hateful place, it brings no contentment. It only furthers resentment. And literally, it's like being in a torture device. You're only turning the screws in on yourself. And a man, he'll experience a whole raft of negative physiological symptoms when he isolates himself. His sleep patterns, they'll become disturbed because he's hypervigilant, so he can't experience deep sleep. And perhaps this is a survival instinct. He's separated from the tribe, so he's on high alert. But his thoughts will become obsessive. He'll play situations over and over again in his head. He'll play out revenge fantasies. And as a result, he'll experience extreme anxiety. His mental functioning, it'll diminish. And he'll find it incredibly hard to adjust to new situations. And his ability to relate or have any semblance of stability in his life or to experience happiness, all of it, will be replaced by a system in constant overdrive. And that man, his body's now running a marathon every day due to his stress levels. And his brain and his physiology become hardwired. And he can't regulate stress. And his body and mind, as a result, will deteriorate. Everything becomes distorted. And interacting with others, it helps us. It helps us regulate and gauge our emotions. But without this interaction, thoughts can become obsessive and emotions can be overwhelming. And we've seen extreme examples of this, like mass shootings, lone gunmen, and so on. But a potential for violence is just below the surface for more men than we'd like to admit. You imagine it. You imagine instigating a fight just so you can make sure you're still alive and not some ghost walking the streets that no one sees. This is a profound sense of isolation that only men experience, and it's affecting more and more men. Because human bonding, It's vital to our survival. Pair bonding, bonding with caregivers. The importance of touch and its healing properties. How touch works, works to reduce stress. How it works to regulate functioning. It's key to a healthy body and a healthy mind. Yet there are countless men out there who go months or even years without experiencing meaningful touch, or even something as simple as a hug. You look at examples such as the cuddle parlors over in the States. Men paying hard-earned money just to cuddle with a woman. And how were these men portrayed by the media? They were portrayed as weak, as not real men. That there were snide remarks made that these men couldn't perform sexually or were intimidated by women. But it was an avoidance of the real truth, because it's painfully obvious that these men were seeking closeness, intimacy. And so many males are deprived of the healing power of human touch. And you broach this issue with most men and they'll deflect or minimize it. They're very uncomfortable with the topic. But human touch, it's not a right. It's not even a question of whether that man is deserving of it. And however much he denies its importance, it's a basic human need and a fundamental aspect of our survival. And to deny it is to deny our humanity. Because friends and peers, social networks, they serve an important function. And yes, they open doors to opportunities, but they also move you into a more healthy space. You become more health conscious as a result of being part of a group. You become less likely to engage in destructive behaviors due to social stigma. It helps stabilize a person. You become more open, you gain a deeper clarity. If not what you want in life, then at the very least what you don't want. And this is key, because being in a relationship is no guarantee that you won't experience loneliness or become emotionally deprived. So it's easier to write the possibility off altogether. And yes, with the climate of legal bias against men who engage with women, the risk is very real. And the price is high. So is the price for not interacting. Many men who write to me, they tell me they're scared of taking the next step. That they don't know how to get their needs met and still stay safe. But the first step is in admitting that these needs are real. And to give those needs a voice. To actually give yourself permission. Because life, it can be extremely painful and isolating for an intelligent man who has a degree of insight, and who also has compassion for other men. A man who doesn't hide from the truth or deflect, who understands what makes himself and other people tick, and who's come to a place of acceptance with how things are, and who accepts that change may be gradual, or that things may not change within his lifetime, but he's adopted an outlook where if he can't change the situation he's in, that instead he's made a conscious decision to change himself. A man who now finds strength through identifying his weaknesses, who discovers self-value through accepting his flaws, who faces his fears and his insecurities by giving himself permission to experience them without shame, and accepts them as a part of himself. Who learns from his mistakes and sees them as an opportunity for growth. A man who forgives, not for the benefit of anyone else, but so he can let go and move forward with his life. Who rediscovers compassion for others and most importantly for himself. And who finds joy again because he's experienced pain, and who uses that pain to grow instead of letting it define him. A complete man of his own making. A free man.